Welcome, welcome, welcome to another AWPM live stream. We are just so happy to have you guys here with us today. We are so happy you're taking the time out of your day to be here. So, hello to everyone, and welcome back to another AWPM live stream. My name is Ormuka Bwaje, and I am the Director of Digital Media and Communication for AWPM, Africa Widows Prayer Movement. So, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're joining us from Nigeria, from the States, from any country, wherever you're joining us from, I just want to thank you for taking this time out to be with us today. But let me know in the comments where you're joining us from. If you're in Nigeria, let us know what state you're joining us from. If you're in the States or Canada or wherever, let us know where you're joining us from because we would love to know and get that feedback from you guys. And definitely, before we begin, we'd love to know how many people are joining us again for the first, second, third time. This is basically another live stream we've just been trying to do every month. So please let me know, is this your first time joining or are you joining again from a previous live stream? We love to know. Today, in our live stream, we're going to be discussing the hidden challenges widows face, basically in widowhood. And that will be how they're in survival, healing, and staying connected through grief. So, this is going to be a very deep and rooted conversation. So, please definitely stay tuned to make sure you get all that needed information if you are a widow, if you know a widow, or if you have friends that are going through something similar, friends, aunties, uncles, whoever, so that they can you can give them the right care and love that they need. Anyways, without further ado, we want to go ahead and introduce our very own guest speaker that we will have today. We are going to be joined by, we're privileged to be joined by our founder, our president, and convener of Africa Widows Prayer Movement. We're going to be joined by
Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's my privilege and honor to be here with you guys. Wherever you're joining us from, we are happy we are here with you. Thank you so very much. So with that being said, I just wanted to officially thank all of you all who are AWPM members joining us live from wherever you're watching from. Thank you so much for being here. Omuka, thank you for the wonderful welcome. It's a privilege and honor to be here and to share my story with you, my journey. I just wanted to share with you again for those of you who are new on this channel. My name again, as has been introduced, is Mary Amojioga, Minister God's Favor. So I'm here to talk about my journey of 14 years as a widow, how God has divinely brought me out of it and where I am today. As we are here to discuss some of the hidden challenges that widows face when they go through this experience. A lot of people don't know that a lot of widows actually face as identity crisis in terms of not knowing who they are any longer, because it's like, the moment you lose your spouse, your significant other, who has been, your sole breadwinner for those who have, their spouses as their sole provider, you lose the financial aspect of that, and then you just don't even know who you are, and you are now left to take care of you and then your children. No matter how many children you are, no matter their ages, you find yourself having to go through all that by yourself. And so in so doing, what happens is that most times widows suffer silently because they're anxious, they are fearful that they won't be able to make it through. Most of them don't even know where they're going to get the next meal from, how they're going to pay their bills. Some of them don't even have the roof over their head any longer, and they are left to wonder, am I going to be able to take care of these children? Are we going to stay homeless? What's next for us? So these are some of the hidden challenges and hidden battles that widows face silently with nobody there, because most people don't even understand the intensity of widowhood because they've not been through it before. Or again, like I said, every widow's challenge is different from another. Some are lucky that they have 100% support of their in-laws or the community or the church, but some are not that lucky, and typically most African widows are not that lucky to have that support. That being said, I want to turn it over to Omuka to play. I mean, hear it from the horse's mouth. You hear what some of these widows are going through. So it's not just my own story, but hear the stories of others. Thank you. Primary source of income, they lose everything. So for more information, click on the link below. Bye.
feel that you'll be praying that helper, helper. I know that God is our helper, but he uses because of a man to bless a nation. As he used Mommy Africa to bless us. Don't relax that, what will I do? Don't say, I cannot do it. You can do it. Even if it is little, God will bless you from that thing that you are doing.
That was amazing. Just being able to see Mama Africa speak about dignity, but also being able to see from our very own Madeline's testimony. It has been something that's been beautiful to see. So I'm just excited to learn more about this topic that we have planned for you guys today. Just being able to discuss the real challenges widows face and just things that they go through on a regular basis that people do not see, and how they are forced into being in survival mode, how they are forced into living in a certain way, and just facing those challenges that people don't see. One of the things I'm excited about is being able to hear the different and deeper aspects from Mama Africa, but we also have clips and videos showing the things that other women that have joined and are part of AWPM have been able to share with us. And I'm excited for us not to just hear from one person, but also different people that have gone through this experience as well. So just to move us into a bit more, I wanted to talk to you, Miss Mary, and see when people think about widowhood, they often just think of only grief. They often focus only on the crying, the sad part, and just having to figure out how to move on with life. But there are many other challenges that widows face every day. And I would love if you could share some of those hidden challenges many widows experience that may not be something that we see, and how you in your personal experience went through those and was able to grow and thrive from it, and just let us see how you were able to move on to this next stage in your life.
So yes, Omuka, thank you so much. I just it's yes, it is a lot, a lot of challenges, but again, for me in particular, I like I said, it had to do with my faith in Christ Jesus to get me through it day in, day out. My hope in Christ Jesus, because when you're flat down on the ground and there's nowhere to turn to, no brother, no sister, no one to pick you up, the only place and the only person, the only force that you can turn to, that I know that have worked for me, is Jesus Christ, who is the author and finisher of our faith. We face a lot of challenges, loneliness, like I said. Most widows don't talk about it. Yes, you might be surrounded with children. Your children are here, no matter the ages, you are faced with loneliness because you don't even want to reveal to them the fears, your challenges, your anxieties. They see you cry in the back and come out and you wipe your tears just to be strong for them. Those are some hidden facts and hidden challenges that widows go through. They don't want their children to see their cries. They don't want their children to see their tears because you're thinking, oh my God, if they see me broken down, if they see me weak, if they see me crying, it might overwhelm them and they feel that it might even affect them like double trauma. So we silently go through anxiety, we silently go through loneliness, we silently go through the uncertainty of tomorrow. Most widows will tell you that they go through all this silently without even you know, able to share that with their children, because they don't want them to feel like take on that responsibility of the anxiety. Because again, most times mothers, widows will be like, I don't even want my children to take on the heftiness of this trauma, of this anxiety, of the fear, of the honest, whatever, the fear of what's coming up tomorrow, like the lack of community support and all that. So you just want to hang in there with your children. But those are some hidden challenges we go through, that the what is coming up tomorrow, and of course the stigma, most widows face stigma, whether it's cultural stigma, societal stigma, you know, even in the churches, most widows face that, because now a lot of people unknown to them don't know how to deal with these widows. You're seeing them coming to church. How do I deal with them? Most times men are scared, like maybe if I'm too familiar, if I say hello too much to them, people might think that I'm talking to her now for, so there's that fear also. So even in the church, you're in the church, but you're kind of isolated, because while in the church, you don't know how people are relating to you, how people are watching and looking at you, and you're like, there are certain things you don't want to even assume responsibility for, or the church will not let you assume responsibility for, because they're not sure of who you are. So it's just like a double tragedy all over. You're trying to put your best foot forward, but you still have this stigma going on, that you're dealing with silently, and the pressures of survival as well. And so these are some of the hidden challenges widows face. And but I'm here to say that even though we face these hidden challenges, but we have to also trust in the Lord, because we know that if we put our hope and trust in the Lord, He will never let us down. He is the father of the fatherless and the husband of the widows. He sees everything we go through, and He knows everything that we're going through. So I want to let you all know that even though we face these silent challenges, silent stigma, silent loneliness, and all those things, but never lose hope and never stop trusting God. So I know these are some of the challenges I personally face, and some that I'm still going through and working through the whole process. But I know there are some other widows as well who have had some of these challenges that, I would want you also listen to them. Again, don't take my word for it, but listen to them and hear their own testimonies as well, hear their own challenges and how they have come through and still thriving to succeed even with this. Thank you.
I want to advise every widows. Manna cannot from above and fall from for you. You need to look for something to do before God can come through for you, because God used someone to bless somebody. That is number one, because when you are doing something and someone is seeing it, you may feel that what you are doing that nobody's seeing it. Somebody is there seeing your efforts. Like me, the little business that my husband left for me, I know God has been helping me through that place. That is the only source of my income. And every day, even I didn't sell or I sell, God has been faithful to me there. So all my advice for them is get something doing, even if it is little, pure water, akara. You will see the hand of God on it. God will always come through for you. I see many widows that stand, that they do a lot of that, stand as a man, as a pillar. So all my advice for you is get something doing, even if it is little than, and God will use someone to support you from there. Because somebody cannot, a manna cannot just from above and fall for you, and you feel that you'll be praying that helper. I know that God is our helper, but He uses because of a man to bless a nation, as He used Mommy Africa to bless us. Don't realize that what will I do? Don't say I cannot do it. You can do it, even if it is little. God will bless you from that thing that you are doing.
I just loved hearing Myla's story again. I know we briefly played that before, but being able to hear that again after Mama Africa had shared her testimony as well and shared her personal experience, I think it was just so important for us to hear that testimony again from another mouth, another widow that has lived this experience and is going through this experience in this very moment. It is very important for widows, even before becoming a widow, but God forbid, we're not praying for anyone to become widows, right? But even before that point in life, like she said in her testimony, you cannot just expect manna to fall from the sky. Let us use our hands to do certain work. Let us use our bodies to work and do things so that we're able to, whenever God gives that person our helpers to come forth and help us, we already have those things that they can pour back into. And it's not just going to be something that's just coming out of nowhere. So that takes us into another important topic, which is survival mode. That's a challenge that nobody talks about. Like her testimony said, she was talking about how she's thankful for the business that her husband did leave for her, that she was able to use that. And when helpers came, they just kept pouring into it, where she was never left in this point of being completely stranded because she had a thing going for her. But at that same point, in that same sentiment, she is a bit in survival mode. And that is something that also many widows have faced, and they're stuck in survival mode. And I think that that's a discussion that is very important for us to have. So I'm going to move us back to Mama Africa to let us know how survival mode, how we get into that, and what is one way that we can combat that and work our way through just being strictly in survival mode.
um it is a reality of life that when you lose, like I say, you lose your husband, your significant other that has been providing protection, providing that security that you need, whether it's financial, it's emotional, it's psychological, safety, security, and that person is no longer there, and now you are left to fend for yourself. Like in Sister Magdalene's testimony, that shop she owned with her husband, and now the husband, he was already sick for like nine years, so money from that shop was already going into to support the husband's health challenges, and now the husband finally died, and now she has to get into survival mode. And just like my situation, I had to get into survival mode, even though being here in the United States. But again, it was like me having to pick up, because I never was the one responsible for paying the major bills in the home. I had to now be responsible for everything. We had to relocate, move from one place to the other. And so again, I had to get in that survival mode because my main thing, my heart was like, no, my mind was always, we cannot be homeless. I have to make sure that I provide for the safety, the security of the children. So it kept me working. And in America, there's no free lunch, there's no free thing. You got to work to eat. So, in order to survive and in order for me and the children to keep going, so I had to like work. And then most times I find myself working and not even being able to be there for my children emotionally, because my focus was more on, let's get a roof over our head, let's get food on the table, let's get clothes on our back. How we survive, even if it's to buy whatever it is, um, cheap stuff, whatever it is. My mind was, you know what, right now my priority is get these children safe, provide food on the table. How are we going to provide for Christmas? How are we going to do that? So in the process of trying to stay strong and doing all that, you understand, to make sure that we're providing the safety, which is the protection. You're working, I found myself working so hard, and that's what most mothers do. And then we find ourselves taking on responsibility and being that person that we were not, in terms of we were created to be feminine and just be the mom, be the person to give the providers emotional safety and all that. But now you're assuming just not more than the emotional safety, you're doing now the hefty lifting, which is mostly like the financial protection and all those stuff. So most times it pushes that emotional aspect back, and you're working and nobody's out there supporting the children emotionally and psychologically. So those are some of the things we go through as widows, because we find ourselves assuming responsibilities that we were not naturally, biologically prepared for. So in the process, we find ourselves working so hard to keep the roof on our head. We find ourselves working so hard to have food on our tables. We find ourselves working so hard to put clothes on our back at the expense of emotional and psychological safety for our children. So it is always important for us to know that even as widows, while we're trying to do all that, it's best to figure out how to balance this, even though in most cases it's hard, especially like in America where our work here is not just is easy work. When you're working, you're mentally, emotionally, and everything into that work. So when you get back, you're very tired. But it is always good to have a balance, and that is what most of us are beginning to realize at this stage of life. So that takes me to how what next to do after you have gone through all the um, survival mode, and then we have issues of doing that, and then we find that some people, it drives them so much to the point where if not by the grace of God, they can even unalive themselves. So without further ado, I just want to turn the mic over so we can watch the testimony of one of our beloved sister, my spiritual daughter, Pastor Favor Irabo. Let her hear from her how God has been helping to heal her emotionally and psychologically. Thank you.
A year after the dismissal of my late husband, I fell sick. To the extent that nobody believed that I was going to survive it. That was when I ran down to this alone with God. I sold most of my things in order for me to survive. People that I thought, even his friends, that I thought that they were going to help me, all of them, because of what my late husband did, none of them was ready to help me. None of them was ready to assist me. If I go to this place, I remember one of his friends, I called him that I was admitted and I needed money to pay for hospital bill. He asked me a question. Are your hands cut off? I was a man that my late husband used to give money to. Many of them that he used to give money to, if they are watching this live, they will know what I'm saying.
Life throws so many curveballs.
Wow, what a testimony. It is just something so different to hear how people can end up treating you in the midst of the time when you're so much in need. It is just, I'm so happy that she was able to share that testimony with us. And we got to see it from a whole different perspective, not just what Mama Africa is saying or her own experience, but to see what other people have gone through in their lives as well. And it is something that I'm happy and glad she has been able to move to this next stage of her life. That's Pastor Faber, to be able to think back and just see it and be like, wow, this is what happened to me. You can't put your trust in man. But to show that she was even in this whole survival mode as well, and moving on from being in survival mode, she had to get into a point where she was in the emotional hospital. That is something Mama Africa is going to talk about deeply with us and explain what the whole emotional hospital is. And she was at a point where she felt like even her life, she didn't even want to have her life anymore. And that full testimony is on our platform, by the way. It's on our website, our YouTube channel, all of our social media platforms. Please, I encourage you to go watch her full testimony so that you can really hear her story. It is amazing. And just to see how much God has caused her life to grow and God used someone to show up on her behalf. So now transitioning into this new topic, the emotional hospital. Have you heard of this before? Are you familiar with what an emotional hospital is? We go to a hospital when our bodies are injured. But where do we go when our hearts are wounded? So this is something that we want to hear more of when it comes to Mama Africa discussing this very, very heavy topic with us as we continue in this live stream. Mama Africa, over to you.
I'm so glad. This is a segue. I love what you said. When people are sick, they go to the hospital because they are sick in their physical body. They know, oh yeah, I have a headache. I'm not feeling so well. They go to the hospital, or they take Tylenol, or take Panadol. You have headache, or if it's malaria, they get treated for malaria. Whatever it is, that's physical healing that you're getting for your body because you're sick. But the emotional healing is so deep that there are so many layers to get an emotional healing. Yes, most of us, as believers, you know, some of us get healing that way. We go to God, we ask God, to heal us from every emotional wound. And yes, God does that too. Through the Holy Spirit, He leads us, He guides us on the things to do so that we can get to that place where we actually get the healing that we desire. Um, when you get to watch Pastor Favor's testimony, or the entire testimony, the video of that testimony, you will hear some of the things she did to be able to get to that level of emotional healing. She had to forgive her in-laws. She forgave her in-laws, and she got back to talking to one of her in-laws, her sister-in-law, who now even also said, you know what, we are so sorry for what we did to you. It was just at the level of grief. They were grieving the loss of their brother, and they could not handle it well, and now decided to put it on her. So getting that gave her the closure she needed and to get her emotional healing. So that's a good start. For me, going through this journey, one thing I told myself, because again, being a Christian and one who is not just a Christian going to church, but a born again, Bible believing Christian, I know that there's just no room, nowhere I could keep unforgiveness in my heart, and all this kind of stuff, because I know that greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And I knew that I didn't want to carry that baggage with me if I was going to move forward. So the first place I needed to start was, yes, what my in-laws did hurt. What people, the misconception, and a lot of people just took sides without even coming to ask, is this true or is this not true? They just chose to believe what they wanted to believe. But I told God, I cannot. You're fighting my battles for me, and I'm not going to carry this on. So I made sure, in fact, there were times I would cry out to God. I say, please search my heart. If there's any unforgiveness, resentment in there, please take it away, because I know you were taking me to a very long journey, and I don't want anything to stop me from getting to where you're taking me to. I had to make sure that for me to be able to move forward, I had to release anyone in my heart, forgive anyone that has hurt me so that I can move forward and take away any form of resentment from my heart. So that when I pray, I know that God is hearing my prayer. So for me, that was the beginning of my journey of getting this emotional healing that is very, very important. Even though you're a Christian, you need to do that. You need to let go. You need to release that hurt. You need to release it. And for most of you who have attended our outreaches, AWPM outreaches, I always encourage widows to make sure they release, take away any resentment from their heart, and forgive all those who have forgiven them, because you can't take on a battle that you already know that God is fighting for you. So for me, that was the beginning part of my getting that emotional healing. However, one thing I got to know, that even though I started that journey of getting the emotional healing for myself, releasing everyone, I realized, even, as in this journey, I told you I'm 14 years in this journey, that even while going through this grief process and through this journey, yes, I was seeking in my own way the emotional healing, but I did not, I was doing it on my own, individually, without carrying my children along. I noticed that, growing as my children were growing up, I realized that, wait, there are certain things that I'm seeing, that is presenting itself, even with the children. Probably we could have all gone through this grieving process. I could have been more vulnerable, in my grief, so that they see it and understand that, we can do this journey together. So I want to encourage us that even when we're going through this survival mode, hiding things from our children, crying, and when they come into the room, you clean your tears. You don't want them to see you vulnerable or see you weak or see that you're uncertain about tomorrow. I want to encourage you. It is okay to bring them along this journey so that they see it, they know it, and they feel it. So as you all are going through it, you're getting the emotional healing, the grief together, so that at the end of the journey, that healing process becomes not just your own healing process or emotional healing, but you're inviting your children to go through this journey with you. However, I want to also encourage, us, because your children, some of you have very small children. Some of you have, it depends on the age of your children. Grieve together, you know, pray together. Also, where you know that, your children need that emotional support, there are resources. I know here in America, you can get grief counseling when you lose your loved one. Take on those counseling, in the church, in our church here in Maryland, in the USA. We have a whole program for people who are grieving. Take on those resources. If they give you, go with your children. And you can also ask for family therapy, family counseling session. Me and my children, even though they're adults now, we're just beginning to start that process of emotional healing, to go deep down to get that therapy that we need, because it's never the best time. Grief comes, is like it goes, you think you have gotten it, or one day it just resurfaces. So I invite everyone to take on this journey of emotional healing. First, start by releasing everyone that hurt you. Don't put that resentment on your heart. Forgive them, because God forgave us even when we were yet in our deep sin and trespasses. So why can we who are we to hold people hostage? And we think we're holding them hostage while we are actually holding ourselves hostage. So I encourage you, as we embark on this emotional healing, like we call it, emotional hospital, release that hurt, release that burden of resentment, release that burden of unforgiveness. Because unforgiveness, like they say, is you holding people, to your heart, thinking you're doing yourself good, but actually it is like you drinking poison and expecting somebody to die on your behalf. So if you don't let go, you're doing yourself more harm than good. So I want to encourage us, whatever it takes. I started mine, like I said, just laying out flats to God. I say, God, help me. I cannot do this by myself. I need you to heal me. I need your help to forgive, because it's not easy. When you look back at what they did, it's not easy. But with God, all things are possible. With God, all things are possible. So I want to encourage you, let go and let God. In Jesus' name, amen. Back to you, Omuka.
Thank you so, so much, Mama Africa, for sharing all of that amazing information and just sharing about what survival mode is and the emotional hospital, and even sharing how survival mode, like people can get into survival as a family. It's a family project. One of the things that I wanted to also ask is like, how can widows stay emotionally present while carrying so much responsibility? How can they show up for their children? And I know you mentioned it is through Christ, obviously, that gives that strength. But I want us to also, now that we've heard all this information, I want us to also take it back to that video that we saw previously, again, to see how widows are stripped from so much things when, and their dignity, especially when they become widows, so that we can tie in the conversation of the emotional hospital survival mode back into what we learned from that video of dignity. So I think we can go ahead and quickly just transition to that so that we can tie everything back, and then we can go ahead and have more of this discussion.
A year after
I just wanted to come out here just to talk to you about some of the stuff that so when widows lose their husband, it is not just their spouse that they lose, they also lose their dignity, they lose self, basically. They lose their finances because, again, their spouse will care, primary source of income, they lose everything. So, for more information, click on the link below. Bye. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to come out here just to talk to you about that widows lose. So when widows lose their husband, it is not just their spouse that they lose, they also lose their dignity, they lose their self, basically. They lose their finances because, again, their spouse was probably the primary care, primary source of income. They lose everything. So for more information, click on the link below. Bye. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to come out here just to talk to you about some of the stuff that widows lose. So, when widows lose their husband, it is not just their spouse that they lose, they also lose their dignity, they lose their self, basically. They lose their finances because, again, their spouse was probably the primary care, primary source of income. They lose everything. So, for more information, click on the link below. Bye. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to come out here just to talk to you.
That was amazing. That was amazing. Just being able to tie those things back together. It has been very, very, very interesting to see, knowing that not only the things that widows lose when they become widows, but seeing how we can end up becoming stuck in survival mode or becoming stuck in this emotional hospital and knowing how to learn next to turn when you get into that phase. So I'm really excited to not only share this, but for all of us to learn on how to better use our resources and better use our community to get out of survival mode and share those true, honest feelings with your family, your children, and people that are there to support you, as well as for the adult children like myself, like a child of a widow, to be able to better support the your parent and be able to support your friends and family members that are going through this tough grief time. But now, not only are we just being able to learn more about this, I want us to transition into some questions. We will have some questions in the chat based on this conversation we've had, and just I want to hear how you guys are feeling about everything, and I would love for us to have that discussion in our chat down below. But I want to know for the audience. I have a few questions that I was thinking, but how can we just as people for ourselves, how can we better show up for the widows in our lives? How can we better show up as a community for those widows and see how we can show up for them in that emotional hospital and when they're in survival? I want to know if people feel safe being able to share their real, true emotions when they're in that season of grief. And I want to know with today's conversation as well, what resonated with you the most? Is it the emotional hospital? Is it being in survival mode? And is it moving on and figuring out how to continue this walk while you are in that grieving process? So I would definitely love to know. I would love to see your questions down below and see how you guys feel about these questions as well and this entire conversation we've had during this stream. But moving on as well, I have some questions for Mama Africa. One of the questions I was thinking is how can widows remain emotionally present while carrying so many responsibilities? What is a way that they can continue to show up for their families while still grieving, but while still being able to truly still be emotionally present? Mama Africa, what do you think?
Omuka, thank you so much. That is fantastic. It's not a one size fits all, and it's not. I wish it was so easy to just say, "Oh, this is what you have to do." It's really not easy to, like I said, to just jump from a survival mode to be balanced. Especially when you're grieving, because again, even if you look at, how the brain works, when you're going through stress or through a situation of uncertainty, your brain goes into that flight or fright mode. So you're trying to survive. So your brain is, that part that gives you that ability to rationalize thinking shrinks, and it doesn't allow you to be able to rationalize when you're in the fire, you know. So most times it's hard because right there you're just trying to at least get food on the table. Your focus is survivor, survivor, survivor. However, I want to encourage my fellow widows, especially those ones that are just coming in, because again, we're not praying for anyone to lose their husbands, because it's best if you have that husband with you, no matter what it is, you know. But we want to encourage people that you don't stay in that grieving mode, don't stay in that survival mode, you know, because your children need you, your community need you, because your emotional stability also will help you give that balance that your children need to be great men and women in their adulthood, to be able to do and accomplish what God created them to do. So, in as much as it's not a one size fits all, my advice for us here is not to stay stuck in that survival mode, but also to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to be vulnerable before your children. And know most times we want, as mothers, we want to protect our children from the reality of what's going on, the reality of the uncertainty that is on ground. But I believe that being open and vulnerable while you're going through this whole grief process will also help you follow that journey accordingly, and also emotionally get the healing that is needed. Because as you're asking God to, like in my case, asking God to forgive my enemies, to take away any form of resentment, any form of unforgiveness from my heart towards anyone, they're seeing you do that. They too will also be asking for the same thing. So my advice would be, please, while going through this, don't stay stuck in that survival mode. Grieve. There's a period. Just grieve, but don't stay stuck. Ask, get the emotional healing that you need. And it starts from first forgiving others, forgiving those who forgave you, taking away every form of resentment from your heart towards anyone, and then making sure that you carry your children along the process, especially for those who have children. So they see you grieving, see you going through this, and so that we can all heal. It might not be at the same time, but at least they will understand that there's a need for that emotional healing. So I encourage you to get help where needed, because, you know, grief counseling is very, very important. You can go to your pastor, you can go to you wherever, whoever is that person that you need to grieve. Thank God for AWPM. That's why we created this community right now, that you can go to another fellow widow and say, look, a seasoned widow, and say, it is hard. At times I feel like unaliving myself, and then hear them go through that. That could be the support you need to help you emotionally. That's why we created this community in AWPM. It could also be going to get real counseling session by paying for a professional therapist to get that. So whichever one works for you, go, get help, encourage, like in our community in AWPM, widows, seasoned widows, talking to younger widows, encouraging them, helping them to get through this. And then even the children of widows, helping the other children of widows to say, we went through this, we made it, and you can make it. So let's create, allow this community to be that source of emotional healing that we need. But also, when needed, go to your pastor, go to whoever you value that can pour out to you and get that healing that is needed. Thank you.
for that amazing information. And I was just reading our comments as well. And I wanted to make this one of our, now we're transitioning into questions and answers. I'm just so excited to hear from everyone. We have a question in the chat saying, Miss Mary, if there's one message you would like every widow watching today to take away from this conversation, what will it be? That question is in our chat. And if you have questions, this is the time. Let us know, type them down below so that we can get to those questions for you and continue this conversation. But Miss Mary, what is one of the main things you would love our viewers to take away from this conversation today?
Continent of Africa, most especially in Nigeria. Um, so I would love for every widow, wherever you are watching from, to please get that community, get help. Don't do it by yourself. You know, we're not created to be isolated. We're not created to struggle and go through issues of life by ourselves. First and foremost, you want to commit every problem, every situation you're going through into the hands of God. But we know also that God is not going to come from heaven to help us do certain things. Faith without works is dead. I want to encourage us as widows, don't be isolated. So my takeaway today will be find that community. Thank God for AWPM who has created that community. Look for a fellow widow, you know, get to know them and get to find out how their journey and how they've been able to survive. I've seen the comments, somebody also talking about her journey of widowhood for 7 years. Look for these widows. I mean, they are not just there by accident. How do we partner? How do we form a community that we can also go through this whole emotional survival and emotional healing together? So, to your question again, my answer to you, Tammy, would be my greatest takeaway today would be for you to find that community, resist any form of isolation and being by yourself, but get that community and get that support that you need to get the emotional healing that is needed for you, not just for yourself, but also for your children if you have one. Thank you. Back to you, Amuka.
For sharing that. We have had quite the conversation today. We have discussed so many different things. Basically, we've discussed uh, dignity and what widows lose and how they lose their dignity and how to basically get back to that point. We've discussed survival mode. We've heard testimonies. We've learned about the emotional hospital. We've learned about survival being a family project. We have learned so much today. And I do not want this conversation to end, but unfortunately, this live stream does have to end. We are not ending just yet because we still want to hear from you guys as we have a few more minutes on this call. But in this live stream, but I wanted to turn it over to you guys once again. Let us know what you would like to hear us talk about in our next live stream. I would love for you guys to definitely make sure you check out our YouTube channel, check out our social media platforms. That is our Facebook, our Instagram, our TikTok, even, and check out our website. Please make sure to follow us on and all the things we are posting, even when we have our outreaches. So definitely on the screen, you'll see it here where you can find us and how to follow. We've been able to learn so much about what widows face and Even if you're not a widow, you're not in that stage of life, God forbid, you don't have to go through that. But if you do have people that you know you love and care about, they could be going through something similar. It's not something based on age. It happens to anyone, young or old. And these are ways you can learn how to show up for them, be there as that community for them, and for them to be able to freely grieve openly and know that they're not being judged or they're not being forced to get over whatever it is that the grief that they're going through. So just a reminder, definitely follow us on our social media platforms. Definitely do that to be able to keep track of where we are, what we're posting, and all those things. But just to close out, I want us to remember the goal is not to simply survive. It is to be able to freely live again after grief. The goal is to survive and remain connected. We don't want to just survive. We want to stay connected. We want to grow and want to heal throughout it all, and not just heal, but to remain whole. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Mama Africa, for being able to speak today and share your journey, share your experience. So on behalf of everyone here at AWPM, we want to thank you today for joining us. Thank you for being here and thank you for taking the time out. Like I said, we will still be looking at the comments down below, and we can use this as a time to be able to discuss other things in our future live streams. So please don't feel shy. Definitely comment down below what you love to hear from us. And we are just so excited to continue this conversation. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. And we'll see you in our next one. Bye.